know that most of what you've seen, read, or heard about Billy the Kid is untrue? My name is Gail Cooper. I'm a medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist. My specialty is murder case consultation for the defense. For 20 years, I've used my expertise to uncover the real Billy the Kid. Researching over 40,000 pages of archival documents and books, I've written the revisionist history. It's shocking, it's liberating, and I've written books demolishing the hoaxes, hijacking the history. My talks will share with you what I've found. Cover-ups, misinformation, and fakery, to use Old West lingo, will bite the dust. This talk presents my revisionist history of Billy Bonney's Secret Service pardon bargain. The information is from my book, The Lost Pardon of Billy the Kid, an analysis factoring in the Santa Fe Ring, Governor Lew Wallace's dilemma, and a territory in rebellion. By the end of May 1879, Billy Bonney was likely number one on the Santa Fe Ring's hit list. In a Fort Stanton court of inquiry, he had just devastatingly testified against the Lincoln County War Battles commander, N.A.M. Dudley, whose illegal intervention had been for the Ring. And a month before, he'd achieved indictments of Lincoln County's local ring boss, James Dolan, and ring hitmen, Jesse Evans and Billy Campbell, for the murder of anti-ring attorney Houston Chapman. The latter fulfilled Billy's pardon bargain with Governor Lew Wallace. If honored by Wallace, it would have freed Billy from his Lincoln County war indictments for the Regulator killings of William Brady, George Hinman, and Andrew Buckshot Roberts. Ring intimidation had halted Wallace's pardoning, so Wallace would have favored Billy's killing to hide his own betrayal. Since most of the regulators had fled the territory after that lost war, the Ring was rightly suspicious of Billy's motives for testifying and staying. Billy and his fellow Hispanic freedom fighters were a good bet for future anti-Ring insurrections. In fact, the day before the Lincoln County War battle, Billy had sent what I named the Regulator Manifesto to territorial ring boss T.B. Catron's brother-in-law. It stated, "The man who plans destruction shall have destruction measured on him. Steal from the poorest or richest American or Mexican, and the full measure of the injury you do shall be visited upon the property of Mr. Catron." In fact, from the war's end in July of 1878 to his March of 1879 sham arrest for the pardon bargain, Billy had been doing guerrilla rustling against the Ringites. After he departed the sham arrest in June, he continued that rustling. Billy sold stock to non-Ringites, Fort Sumner area Dan Dedrick, also a counterfeiter, and Three Rivers rustler and slaughterhouse owner Pat Coughlin. Billy also sold rustled horses in Tuscosa, Texas. His helpers were past regulator friends Charlie Bowdry and Tom O'Folliard, and career thieves Dave Rudabow, Tom Pickett, and Billy Wilson, likely met through Dan Dedrick, who used Wilson and Pickett to pass fake bills. Protected by his partisans, Billy avoided murder by the Ring almost through 1880. That likely elicited use of Ring co-boss Stephen Benton Elkins in Washington, D.C. In September of 1880, James Brooks, chief of the Secret Service, was contacted. The Secret Service was founded during the Civil War by President Abraham Lincoln and Secretary of War Edward Stanton to combat a counterfeit money problem. Added was power to pursue other crimes and even to kill. By September 10, 1880, Special Operative Azariah Wild, one of only 40 in the country, was sent to New Mexico Territory. He was unaware that his real mission was political assassination. He was sent to Lincoln, where his primary minders would be Catherine's brother-in-law, Edgar Wallace, and local ring boss, James Dolan. Lazy and gullible Wild, doing minimal personal investigation or even leaving Lincoln, would be tricked by them that Billy headed a huge rustling and counterfeiting gang out of Fort Sumner that would result in Wild's backing Texan posses under Sheriff-elect Pat Garrett, whom he made a deputy U.S. Marshal to capture or kill Billy. But the ring's scheme almost failed. In Lincoln, Wild soon met a relatively new resident, attorney Ira Leonard. Leonard, after assisting prosecution of past Commander N.A.M. Dudley in nearby Fort Stanton, had remained there. He offered to help Wild pursue counterfeiters. Ira Leonard had become Billy's attorney after being impressed by his testimony in the 1879 grand jury in Lincoln and at Dudley's court of inquiry. Leonard had aided Billy's pardon bargain with Lew Wallace by updating Wallace about Billy's testimony. Wallace, fearing ring backlash, nevertheless, had withheld the pardon. So Leonard tried again to get a pardon for Billy. He offered to Azariah Wild the same bargain, Billy's eyewitness testimony against criminals in exchange for a pardon. Now the criminals were the counterfeiters. Also relevant to the outcome was that Leonard apparently told Billy about the Secret Service and that Wild wrote daily reports to his chief, James Brooks. The counterfeiters were Dan Dedrick, located 12 miles south of Fort Sumner at his Bosque Grande ranch, and his brothers Mose and Sam and a William West at a livery stable in White Oaks. Connected to the livery were Billy Wilson and Tom Pickett for passing bills. Dedrick also bought cattle with counterfeit bills, then resold them for good money. And his men also made purchases with bills in Lincoln. Billy's connection was using Dan Dedrick and the livery as outlets for rustled stock and using Wilson and Pickett for rustling. Since Wild mentioned in a report that Dan Dedrick was rumored to have a press for printing bills, Billy may have also known about it. Ira Leonard told Wild about Billy's pardon bargain with Lew Wallace, explaining Billy's exclusion in Wallace's amnesty proclamation. Wild was left poised to save Billy's life by a pardon which Wallace might have backed since it freed him of its responsibility. Wild described the new pardon option in his report to Chief Brooks on October 8, 1880. He wrote, "In my report of October 5th, I spoke of an outlaw whose name was Antrim, alias Billy Bonney. During the Lincoln County War, he killed men on the Indian reservation, for which he has been indicted in the Territory and the United States Court." Note that Wild garbled Leonard's information. The territorial indictments were for the Regulator killings of William Brady and George Hinman. The United States Court, or federal indictment, was for the Andrew Buckshot Roberts killing made by U.S. Attorney Catherine against the Regulators and claimed as occurring on federal land of the Mescalero Indian Reservation. Wild continued, "Governor Wallace has issued a proclamation granting immunity to those not indicted, but as Antrim has been indicted, the proclamation did not cover his case, and he has been in the mountains as an outlaw ever since. Governor Wallace has since written Antrim's attorney on the subject, saying he should be let go, but has failed to put it in shape that satisfied Judge Leonard, Antrim's attorney." Note that Leonard confirmed that he had a letter from Wallace about the pardon, but it was somehow inadequate. This letter is lost. As to it being inadequate, Wilde may be garbling that Wallace didn't file for the pardon in a court of law. In fact, as discussed in Talk 24, linked below, K.G. Wallace avoided putting the full bargain in writing. Also revealed by Wilde's statement is that loyal Leonard had continued to pursue Billy's pardon with Wallace. Also implied is that Leonard may have been unaware of Catherine's May 1, 1879 court appearance, in which he simply ignored the Amnesty Proclamation's exclusion for those indicted and got pardons for all Ringites indicted in the Lincoln County War. If Leonard had done that for Billy, Wallace may have let it go through since he wouldn't be responsible. Wilde also showed his early manipulations by his Ringite handlers writing. It is believed, and in fact is almost known, that Antrim is one of the leading members of this gang. Wilde continued, Antrim has recently written a letter to Judge Leonard, which has been shown to me in confidence, that leads me to believe that we can use Antrim in these cases, provided Governor Wallace will make good his written promises, and the U.S. Attorney, Sidney Barnes, will allow the case pending in the U.S. court to slumber and give Antrim one more chance to reform. Note that Wilde confirms written promises and is prepared to get Wallace to grant Billy's pardon. Importantly, Wilde realizes that Catherine's federal indictment for the Roberts killing could not be pardoned by Wallace. It required a presidential pardon. That's why Wilde added that he could intervene to get federal prosecutor U.S. Attorney Sidney Barnes to simply ignore the federal case. Wilde added, I promise nothing and will not accept to receive any propositions Leonard and his clients see fit to make. Leonard has written Antrim to meet him. The chances are that the conversation will take place within the next week, when I will report fully to you and submit whatever propositions they see fit to make to U.S. Attorney Barnes for such action as he deems proper to take. Reporting for October 9th, Wilde provided a copy of his letter to U.S. Attorney Sidney Barnes with a new bargain for Billy. He also revealed that Ira Leonard had given him information about the counterfeiters in White Oaks and at Dan Dedrick's ranch, likely from Billy, to advertise his value for the new pardon bargain. Additionally, Billy wrote himself to confirm the bargain, and Wilde answered it. Note that Billy's letter and Wilde's response are lost. But Wilde also reported negative Ringite input about Billy. This demonstrated that not too sharp Leonard had failed to inform Wilde about the Ring, Billy's lawman or regulator roles, or the Lincoln County War freedom fight. So Wilde ended up informing the Ring via U.S. Attorney Barnes, Boss Catherine's close associate, about Billy's new possible pardon. Wilde wrote, William Antrim, alias Billy Kid, is at Fort Sumner and is a member of the Klan, meaning gang. I have recently seen a letter written by him in which he expresses himself as being tired of challenging the officers. The letter has been answered, and the chances are that I will meet with him under circumstances which may bring about good results. If able to use Antrim, alias Billy Kid, on reasonable terms, I am satisfied fully 50 arrests will follow. Note that Ira Leonard had carelessly arranged a face-to-face meeting of Billy with Wilde, leaving Billy open to capture. Reporting for October 11th, Wilde revealed the Ring's pushback by naming Billy and other regulators as outlaws. Wilde wrote that he intended to arrest Billy, Charlie Bowdry, Hosea Skurlock, and Tom O'Folliard. To U.S. Attorney Barnes, Wilde wrote, "It may be well to send down warrants for the other parties who stand indicted in U.S. court and who are making Fort Sumner their headquarters." On October 16th, Billy, more canny than Leonard, intervened himself. He robbed the stagecoach carrying Wilde's reports. He would have read October 11th about arresting him and other regulators. He realized the Wilde meeting would be a trap. He backed out. So the second pardon chance was lost because of Ira Leonard's failure to properly negotiate or to clarify Billy's anti-ring role. Wilde did not mention it again in his reports. Instead, he added stagecoach robbing to his fictional counterfeiting rustling gang's crimes. Much like Lew Wallace, Wilde, who was accomplishing nothing, needed the kid to fake action. For his report for October 20th, Wilde reported Billy's mail theft. He requested a posse to seize the gang in Fort Sumner. Wilde wrote, "In this mail, I had several reports which if taken and read, as they must have been, as both mail pouches were cut open and the contents scattered about the ground. If this is as I believe it must be, the plans of our capture and my mission here is as well known to them as it is to myself. I have respectfully notified the U.S. Attorney Sidney Barnes of this gang of men and their headquarters being at Fort Sumner. I've also asked for warrants to arrest these men and for commissions for such men as are willing to assist me in making of the arrest. The parties, Kidd, Wilson, O'Follier, meaning O'Folliard, and Pickett, who are undoubtedly the ones who robbed the mail on the 17th, Wilde meant the 16th, are out at a ranch 12 miles from Fort Sumner, referenced as Dan Dedrick's ranch. They can be taken at any time unless my reports taken from the mail frighten them away." Note that Billy is now listed first, as Wilde lumps together regulators with Dan Dedrick's counterfeiters. For October 22nd, duped Wilde was now writing about the Wilson and Kidd gang linked to the mail theft. He wrote, "The man who was driving the mail back at the time it was robbed recognized several of the gang as being the Wilson and Kidd gang who done the robbing of the mail on the night of the 16th instant." So Billy lost his last chance at a pardon and became the focus of duped operative Azariah Wilde's outlaw myth, Witch Hunt, discussed in another talk.